What's going on, everybody? So today I want to give you guys my ultimate Demon Hunter guide. Now, what's interesting about this class is this is the class I've probably played the most, because I've been playing this since day one on other characters and on other accounts. So when you guys see me play Demon Hunter, this wasn't the first time I was playing Demon Hunter. Although I have been playing it for the past 2 months, I think at this point. I want to give you guys what I'm doing here with the Demon Hunter, especially with the new recent legendary items, set items, legendary gems, some of the skill priorities, stat priorities, and all the different builds that I'd suggest for both PvE and PvP. Let's get into it. All right, so the first thing I want to start off with is attribute priority. Now, Demon Hunter is a damage dealing class first and foremost. And what that means is that we're going to want to prioritize damage dealing stats. So in terms of secondary attributes and primary attributes, what we're going to want to do is we're going to jump onto the strength. Let me move myself over here on the right hand side. We're going to want to focus strength priority. Okay, then we're going to want to go ahead and focus fortitude. Why? Because we want armor pen. Those two are of utmost importance. After that, we're going to want to get willpower, because we do have some burns and things like that we can take advantage of with potency. And so that's going to increase our damage. And then we care about life, of course, because life is just a little bit extra tanky stats. Strength number 1, fortitude number 2. Arguably, fortitude is a little bit more important if you're beneath the armor pen. For example, if I pull up my secondary attributes here, you can see armor pen, I'm 93 lower. So I'm actually going to get more value out of getting fortitude than I would strength at the current moment. So fortitude, strength, kind of equal priority in terms of generally, but sometimes fortitude can be a little bit more priority than strength. So that's going to be your attributes. You really want to focus on the damage dealing ones. Then we have legendary gems. Now, in order to check out these legendary gems, we're going to head over to the market here and talk about my top 6 favorite legendary gems. Now, if you're a pay-to-win player, you're going to be able to acquire these. If you're free to play, then there are substitutions. I've made videos in the past on this topic. First off here, for pay-to-win players, resonance isn't necessarily everything for the Demon Hunter, because we're doing damage. Therefore, Blood-Soaked Jade, number 1 choice, in my opinion. This is going to be absolutely the best. You're going to get some damage out of it. After that, I actually think Echoing Shade is really good for Demon Hunter. Why? Because these actually use your primary attacks. And therefore, if you're using your primary attacks on the Demon Hunter, this is going to go ahead and do a ton of damage, because your primary attacks are the main reason how you do damage. And you can oftentimes do a lot of things to amplify that. After that, Bloody Reach. Now, even if you're a pay-to-win player, I've done a lot of examples of why these damage amping gems are better than Resonance. And if you guys haven't seen, I would have put out a video recently talking about this and actually doing the math for you. But the damage amping gems are actually better than Resonance. So even though you're missing on a ton of Resonance, Bloody Reach is going to give you more damage. The only thing it's not going to give you is more life. So if you're someone that wants to be a little bit tankier and is worried about being too squishy, then Bloody Reach might not be for you. But Bloody Reach is going to give you more damage than Resonance. Another one here, guys, Berserker's Eye. This is another one that's absolutely amazing. So if you guys, again, want additional damage, you're going to want to run up Berserker's Eye. Then we go back over to the 5-star gems, and this is where it starts to get a little bit, questionable in terms of, you could argue a few of these. I personally, Seeping Bile is just an absolutely amazing one. You're going to get extra slows, extra damage, really good for PvP, really good for PvE, especially in things like challenge rifts. And then actually, this might be a hot take, but Concentrated Will is something that I've found really good for the Demon Hunter, simply for the fact that I oftentimes using Daring Swing in a lot of my builds, just because I need to move around the map a little bit quicker. And because I'm using that, I actually go ahead and increase my movement speed and damage by a percentage, while also getting that little bit of hit on Concentrated Will. Hellfire Fragment's still really good. Bottled Hope is an argument as well. Depends on what buff and what kind of combo you're using, but this can be really good because Vengeance procs this. There's a few other ones like Howler's Cult's really good. A lot of other ones like Power and Command. There's so many good ones, to be honest. I prefer to mix a little bit of Resonance as well as a little bit of 2-stars and 1-star gems, because there is a break point where you don't want to run all 2-star gems, because it's not going to give you more damage than Resonance. But if you run 1, 2, even 3 1-2-star gems, you're going to get a lot of value out of that. So that's going to be the gems. Let's talk about set items. All right, so we're going to talk about set items a little bit here and give you general uses, but I also have set items for each specific build, which I'll go over a little bit later on in the video. For general use, the best combination in general is going to be a 4-piece Vithus and a 2-piece Shell Boss. Why? Well, this Vithus is going to proc off your smoke screen, off of your main hand, potentially if you're running the right legendary item. It's going to proc off of your smoke screen, vengeance, all that good stuff, all your buffs. It's going to increase the duration of your smoke screen, your vengeance, which is really, really impactful. Attack speed is very, very important because primary attack damage really is where you're going to get a ton of damage because you're constantly moving, constantly shooting, and then vengeance is amping up your attacks as well. So more attack speed is going to amp up your vengeance damage, etc., etc. It's just all working so great together. Now, a 2-piece Shell Boss is going to increase that primary attack damage. You can also run potentially a Grace set, and I know a lot of people don't necessarily use this, but 6-piece Grace set is sometimes interesting, and I find that it's actually really quite useful. And also running something like a 2-piece Isitar instead of a 2-piece Shell Boss can actually be really good for farming. So it's not necessarily all the time. Every single time you want to use 4-piece Vithus, 2-piece Shell Boss. There are some modifications that you can make for specific areas of the game. Granted, not everyone farms a bunch of set items, so if you want a general set build, 4-piece Vithus, 2-piece Shell Boss, it'll be good everywhere. Just, if you want to be a little bit more niche down, a little bit more specific, you can make some minor changes, as we'll go over in just a bit. All right, so we're gonna go over a couple builds. First off, I have a PvE open world farming build. This is just general utility in terms of circle farming. Maybe you're gonna go AFK farming, although I have a kind of a separate build for that. But generally just moving around and shooting, this build is gonna work well for you. Now I have 2 different separate builds for this, but let's go over the skills first. So skills, we're gonna be using Vengeance here. Vengeance is incredibly important. Rain of Vengeance, Daring Swing, Multi-Shot, and Crossbow Shot. I never use Explosive Arrow. This causes you to stop and shoot, whereas Crossbow Shot, you can continuously move and shoot. As for set items, what you're going to be using in this build is going to be a 4-piece Vithus, okay? This is going to be working with your Vengeance, and you're going to run a 2-piece Isitar. 2-piece Isitar is going to help you get movement speed whenever you kill an enemy. Again, you can use Shell Boss if you want. As for legendary items, I'm going to be running Cowl of Absolute Punishment. This is going to give our multi-shot extra damage. This is very important because oftentimes when you're open world farming, you're going to shoot a multi-shot, keep moving on. So you really need that little bit of extra damage to get that kill and keep moving on, especially if you're solo farming. Heart of Vengeance is going to give us extra cooldown decrease for our Vengeance. This is important for when you go ahead and get up to those large monsters or elites. You can proc Vengeance. By the time they spawn again, you'll have it up again. Hailfire, this is going to give you a little bit of extra damage from your multi-shot once again for the same reasons as I mentioned earlier. Koth's Unrelenting Fury, this is important because yes, you can get extra damage from Vengeance from the other item. I forgot the name of it right at this moment, but this is important because you're not going to be proccing all of your skills during Vengeance, and so you want your extra primary attacks to deal extra damage in terms of rockets, because Vithus is going to increase your attack speed, so this Vithus is going to increase the legendary item viability, as well as giving you extra damage to when you enter into battle against those elites. Then we have the main hand Flame Spite. This is just going to give you a multi-shot extra flaming arrow damage, and this is just going to do extra damage over time. This is very important for keeping up kill streaks, and also just basically killing enemies as you keep moving. And then lastly, we have the Hungerer. This is probably the most important item of any item here. Why? Because Crossbow Shot's gonna pierce through enemies. This is important for A, hitting multiple enemies with your basic, but also B, keeping up kill streaks and getting enough damage in. It's a very simplistic build. All you're gonna do is you're gonna run through, find a pack, you're gonna drop a multi-shot, keep moving. You might be shooting, you're gonna be shooting while moving, and then you're gonna use Daring Swing to continuously move you around that area. The only reason Daring Swing is in this build is to move through the areas quicker. This is very important to keep up kill streaks oftentimes. And I'll mention Paragon Tree here really quickly because I think that's a very important thing to note. Open world farming, what I'd run is 54 Treasure Hunter. All Treasure Hunter if you could, but at least get 54 in Treasure Hunter. Or, this is a new one here, you could run, where is it? The Massacre one. This is going to be the kill streak one. However, this is going to get you less loot, so I'd rather recommend Treasure Hunter. That's the first open world farming build. Let's go into the second one. All right, so as for the second open world farming build, this is going to be something that is exactly the same as the previous build, but there's one modification for when you need a little bit more damage, and that's going to be swapping out your main hand for Buzzard on the Wing. This is going to allow you, when you proc Strafe, to give you extra attack speed, okay? So this is something that I've only recently acquired myself because I got the legendary item recently. I now have every one, so I can actually show you guys this. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to press Vengeance really quickly, literally for just as little as you possibly can. Why? Because it's going to proc your Vithus, and it's going to allow you to basically go ahead and get that attack speed And the only change we're making is that change. Everything else remains the same. This is for when you need extra damage, but less mobility. For example, if you're running Realm of Damnation circle farming, you may not need as much movement speed because you may kill your enemies too quickly, or you're going to mess up your kill streak. Or if you're in a situation, let's say, where you're fighting a lot of elites or bosses, then you might want this build instead of the previous one to make sure your Vithus is constantly up. Not much of a modification here in terms of open world farming because open world farming is relatively easy. Let's move on to 2 more PvE builds and then jump into the PvP ones. All right, this next build is going to be a dungeon farming build, and I lied. There's going to be 3 more builds, including this one. So let's go over the set items real quick here. We're going to be using 4-piece Vithus, 2-piece Shell Boss in this one. Our legendary items are going to be Murder Most. This is going to give us crit rate for our Vengeance. We have Heart of Vengeance to decrease that Vengeance cooldown. We have Hailfire to give our multi-shot a little bit of extra damage. Jane's Silent Retribution. This is the important key piece. Critical hit chance is going to increase by 50% for 1 second after Smoke Screen's concealment ends. This is very, very important. Flame Spike, we're going to go ahead and get multi-shot burn and hunger for the piercing for dungeon farming. Now, this could potentially change depending on what dungeon and what classes you have. Obviously, I can go for an hour talking about all the different minor modifications you can make to every dungeon, but this is going to be a generally really good dungeon farming build because you want a bunch of damage. Now, for those of you that are going to say, oh, but what happens if you have a Crusader in your party? It can still be the best build for Crusaders because even though Crusaders put up their banner, you still have to get 65% additional crit chance to up your damage. So when we're proccing our Vengeance and our Smokescreen, our extra crit chance is actually going to give us more crit damage, which is very, very impactful. So with all that, what we're basically doing with this build is using our Vengeance, and then as our Vengeance is basically going ahead and using that Vithus proc, we're going to proc Smokescreen and then proc Vithus a second time. And this is going to give us crit chance from Vengeance, crit chance from Smokescreen, and basically give us about 65% crit chance. And then we can proc all of our skills in a huge burst damage area because crit chance is going to work with all of our skills during that portion. And then as our cooldowns are, coming back up, we're just going to basic. This is very, very important because a lot of bosses have 2 phases, multiple phases. And so it shouldn't be a big deal for you guys to have your cooldowns on cooldown while you're going ahead and hitting the enemy. This is a very, very high burst damage, high amount of damage build. And a lot of times this is perfect for basically bursting down the boss and then moving on to the next boss, especially things for Mad King, Tomb of Fakir, even things like Temple of Namari, etc., etc. So this next build is my personal favorite build for the Demon Hunter, but also something that you really can't use that often. It can be used for dungeons actually decently well. It also is really good for challenge rifts, and that's going to be the continuous damage knife trap Demon Hunter build. So let's go over the skills here that we're using. We're using Vengeance, Impale, Knife Trap, Rain of Vengeance, and Crossbow Shot. You can run something like Explosive Arrow for this, and you can also swap out Vengeance for a couple other options here. You have a couple of other options, but this is my preferred version. And as for legendary items, we're running Murder Most, giving us a crit chance for that Vengeance. Plate of Lethal Intent is going to reduce our Knife Trap arming time. Hailstone Shoulders is going to give Rain of Vengeance some frost, so we can freeze and slow, or not freeze, but we can slow down enemies and then trap them. Legguards of the Inevitable Inferno is going to double the damage of Knife Trap, over double, I think, and it's going to burn enemies when detonated. Dreadlands Requital is going to give us extra damage from Rain of Vengeance. Puncta Obscura is going to give us some bleed damage from Impale. Set items, we're going to run a 4-piece Grace, sometimes a 6-piece Grace. In my personal opinion, I like the stun effect for a lot of PvE content and the burst damage. So I like 6-piece Grace, but you can run 4-piece Grace and 2-piece Vithus, 2-piece Shell Boss, 2-piece Isatar. There's a lot of other options. And what we're basically doing with this build is we're going to run into the enemies. We're going to proc our Vengeance here, drop our Rain of Vengeance to slow enemies down, and we're going to slow basically drop the knife traps and have people walk into them. And then as they're walking into them and we've placed it, we're just going to impale them as they approach and hit them with this. We can apply the bleeds. This is a very, very important build. The 4-piece Grace is incredibly important because all the continuous damage is coming out from them, and we're going to hit them all with the repeated hits of everything. It's so good, so fun. I mean, look at this, guys. This is one of the hardest hitting, if not the hardest hitting skill I've ever seen. 54,000 damage over 4 seconds. Compare that to something like Rain of Vengeance here, which is normally something really, really solid. 31k damage, and this is 3 charges. 3 charges. So if you get the full duration, you're doing 60,000 damage to the enemies, which is crazy amount of damage. I would love this build in any situation that I can use it in. I'm really a big fan of this one. Now we have some PvP builds. Now I have 2 for you. There's so many different variations. Honestly, throughout this whole video, you can make so many different variations, and these aren't even all of my different variations of my builds that I'm running. I'm just giving you guys a lot of my favorites and things that I've found a lot of effectiveness with. But this PvP build, we're going to be running Scatter Mask. Actually, I should go over the abilities first. Vengeance, Rain of Vengeance, Smoke Screen, Multi-Shot, and Crossbow Shot. And we're going to be running Scatter Mask. This is going to give our Vengeance a Fear, which is really nice. Heart of Vengeance is going to decrease that cooldown so we can get more value out of that. Vosh's Typhonic Stampede. This is one of the Demon Hunter's few CC abilities, but a really powerful one. Definitely recommend this one. Jane's Silent Retribution. This is give us a little bit of surprise. I love Smokescreen in PvP, and I honestly would love to run it every single time. This one's more of a glass cannon than the next build I'm going to go over. We have Flame Spike, Burning Arrows, and then we have Hunger to pierce through enemies, which we'll oftentimes be doing because we're hitting a lot of enemies at once. The basic idea for this build is to drop Smokescreen and actually be in the fight right next to people. Proc that Vengeance, get that Fear off, and then, drop the multi-shots, all 3 of them, so we can get that crit chance. And then if they decide to turn around and try to fight you again, you're going to drop the beasts and then run backwards so that you can basically survive and run away. This is a very glass cannon build, by the way, because we don't have any mobility, right? We only have the smoke screen, so if you are dead, you're dead. There's nothing really to do. You can't run away. If there's a barb on top, you can't run away. So keep that in mind. Let's talk about one that's a little bit more safe, a little bit more CC. This one is my new favorite, to be honest. I've been using this a little bit here at PvP. I've been really enjoying it. Our skills are Vengeance, Escape, Knockback Shot, Multi-Shot, and Crossbow Shot. Now, this one is very fun, and something that isn't necessarily the greatest, but it's super cool, super fun. So what we're going to be doing here is, in our legendary items, we have Abundant Intangibles. This is one of the new ones. Escape now makes us invisible for 2.4 seconds. Heart of Vengeance. We have a Live Bait, which allows Escape to cause us to tumble forward, and we can teleport back to our original location if we want to. Cough's Unrelenting Fury, giving our Vengeance a little bit of extra primary attack, explosive damage. Multi-Shot's going to fire Frost Arrows, and then the Hunger to pierce enemies. The idea of this build, guys, is we have Knockback Shot to protect us in order for us to go ahead and knock back, barbs, interrupt their skills, interrupt anyone, right? Multi-Shot is going to fire Frost. This is really good against those melee characters to slow them down. Vengeance is our damage dealing ability. We're relying on a ton of damage from Vengeance. And Escape here, check this out, guys. Actually, I should mention the pieces. We're going to be running a 4-piece Vithus and a 2-piece Shaw Boss, because Escape's going to proc our Vithus, and so is Vengeance, and that's where we're getting a lot of our damage. But the idea of this build is to jump in, proc our Vengeance, and then drop our Multi-Shot, and then teleport back to our Escape. This is great to be able to go ahead and start from a far away location, jump into the fray, do some damage, and then teleport to safety. Even if you're getting chased here, you can, go off to the left-hand side, to the right-hand side, stay in stealth, and juke people out by teleporting back to your original location. I actually love this version of Escape. The invisibility is so impactful in PvP. I personally love this build. It's one of my favorites in Demon Hunter, and honestly, something that if I enjoyed PvP a little bit more, I would definitely take advantage of. So I figured I'd jump into a challenge rift and show you guys another build here while I go over my overall thoughts on the class. So I've been playing Demon Hunter since the inception of the game. This has been the class that I wanted to play the most, no questions asked. I was super excited to play the Demon Hunter, and that's one of the main reasons why I was so interested in jumping into the game, was that I felt, okay, Demon Hunter looks super cool. I want to play this class. And to be honest, even though I started with the Crusader for my warband, I've always wanted to play the Demon Hunter, and I'm so glad that I did get the option to play him later on in the game. And to be honest, this class is my second favorite class, despite everything I just said. And the reason for that is I love the Wizard. I think that the Wizard's great. However, the Demon Hunter is an absolutely beast of a class, and a class that is one of the best, if not the best, damage dealers in PvP. Now, I say one of the best because there's an argument that, Crusaders actually way better in PvE group content, simply for the fact that their Conjuration of Light, their banner, is just so oppressive that you can't even compete with it, even if you just are pure single target damage. How crazy is that? So there is definitely a lot of things that I have great to say about the Demon Hunter. The best thing about it for me is the ease of farming, the fact that it's range class. I don't think I'll ever go back for a melee class at the current moment unless it's the Blood Knight. And so because of that, I am just going to be sitting on a ranged class simply for the fact of how easy it is to farm. And the Demon Hunter is arguably one of the easiest. I didn't show you guys my ultra lazy farming build, but you could run something like triple Sentry and just run with a bunch of sentries and just sit back, relax, and allow them to do the work for you. So a lot of cool things for the Demon Hunter, a lot of unique builds, just like this continuous damage, even more so continuous damage build than I was showing you previously. So lots of cool things about that, and lots of cool things to showcase and experience for yourself. So if you guys want a class that's going to be extremely insanely strong, but also give you the option to do a lot of unique things that aren't necessarily super meta, but actually have quite a few builds. That was one of the things that I initially was a little scared about the Demon Hunter, was that it was going to be a little bit straightforward, but in fact it's not. It's actually got a lot of unique and interesting mechanics to it that you could take advantage of. So definitely recommend giving the Demon Hunter a try. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the guide, the builds, and everything. I know it was a longer video, but I wanted to give you guys all my explanations for all the builds. Now, I know there's going to be some people of you that are going to say, oh, wow, this is the most trash guide in the world, and I'm just going to laugh at you. It is what it is. Everyone's got their own opinion, and everyone has different things that they value more so than others. I will say there's a lot more builds. These aren't necessarily the most optimized in terms of damage per second in certain scenarios, but I will say they are very good, and a lot of times, especially like the continuous damage build for challenge rifts, are surprisingly some of the best. So do not knock the builds before you try them, and hopefully this helps you. So thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed. I'll see you all tomorrow.